Welcome. In this video I'm going to explain some very basics of measurement levels. I'm going to limit myself to the measurement levels of nominal, ordinal and something called scale. If you look at all your different variables, then depending on the type of values, you can actually perform different operations with them. So, for example, you would be able to calculate an average temperature if you recorded the daily temperature, but you wouldn't be able to calculate, for example, an average hair color. So, depending on what type of scores you actually have, different operations can be performed. So there are different ways to categorize variables, and the one that's still most frequently used is one that was designed by Mr. Stevens in an article from Science from 1946, and he categorizes it into 4 different categories: nominal, ordinal, interval, and a ratio. Now, I will not go into the difference between interval and ratio because that's a little bit tricky. I have a separate video on that in case you're interested. And for this video, I'll simply combine these two into one scale, one measurement level, which I will call scale, which is something also SPSS does. Let's begin with a quick description of each of the 3 measurement levels. The first one is nominal, which I personally remember has no in it because there's no particular order, besides perhaps alphabetical. The second level is ordinal, where the values do actually have a logical order but aren't numbers. Note that it has a bit of order in the name of it. And then the last one would be the scale, which is actually if you have true numbers. Now, with true numbers, I mean something that's really intended as a number. So not, for example, the numbers of a zip code. I've designed this little flowchart to help you with deciding on which measurement level a variable might have. Note that this is a simplification. Not all variables might actually fit this flowchart, but hopefully most of them will fit your needs. And especially if, for example, you want to increase on the scale and split that further into interval and ratio, the flowchart will of course become a lot bigger, but like I mentioned, for interval and ratio, please check my other video on that. Let's do a few examples on how to work with this flowchart, and then you also see variables and what kind of measurement level they actually have. Let's do a few examples with this flowchart. Let's begin with gender. With calculating an average of the score, so the options would probably be male, female, and others perhaps. Wouldn't be possible to calculate an average, so no. Is there a logical order? Well, some people debate about this, but from a statistical point of view, there's not really any particular order, so let's put it at nominal. So, educational program, so for example, math, physics, psychology, etc. Can we calculate an average of those? No. Is there any logical order besides alphabetical? No, it doesn't really matter in which order you would put them in on your survey, so that's also a nominal variable. Educational level, so primary school, secondary school, and higher education. Calculating an average, not really possible. Is there a logical order? Yes, because it would be weird to ask, for example, which educational level do you have, and then start with secondary, and then primary, and then higher. The order could be, of course, in reverse, so primary, secondary, higher, or higher, secondary, primary. But that doesn't matter much. There is a logical order in the possible values, so that is an ordinal variable. Now, if we would ask people their age, it would be possible to calculate an average of those ages, and it would also make sense, like what's the average age of a student, for example. So that's a yes, so that means that's a scale variable. If you ask people for their phone number, then we would strictly speaking, be able to calculate an average of the phone numbers, but it wouldn't make any sense. So in this case, that would be a no. Is there a logical order in the options? Well, not really. I think it depends on the carrier. So also, again, not really. You would put them in numerical order probably, but that's similar as alphabetical in this case. If we ask people about their opinion, then it would not be able to calculate an average, because how would you do fully agree plus agree divided by 2 equals what exactly? And how would you even add those up? In some cases, people would assign numbers to these, but for the measurement level, it's actually about the original underlying scale, so that would be this one. So the answer remains the same and is no. So we move it to here. There is, of course, a logical order in this case, fully agree to fully disagree. It would be weird to mix the in-between options around, so this would be an ordinal variable. So it's about opinion about anything. So do you enjoy this video so far? Now, number of children. I ask people number of children, how many do you have? They give me a number, so would calculating an average of this make sense? Yes, it would, so that's a scale variable. Family name, calculating an average would not even be possible. So is there a logical order? Not really. So that would be nominal. And last one, income, would calculating an average of these makes actually sense? Well, yes, so that moves to the right. So that's a scale variable. Note, by the way, that if you would ask people, for example, for their income category, so if it's categories or age category, then it's no longer actually a number. So we wouldn't strictly be able to calculate averages anymore, and then it would become ordinal. So be careful how you ask your questions, because depending on how you've asked it, you get a different measurement level.